All right, class, you have now gotten yourself either successfully logged into Pixlr or you got yourself that photo from online and uploaded in here. Now we're going to be making some edits to this photo to earn credit for this first assignment that I'll be grading titled Recap of Days 1 and 2 for Art. So as I mentioned on Tuesday, there are some things we should probably discuss before tackling some of these edits. For example, all of these are going to be called our tools. These are going to give you options to physically change the photograph in lots of different ways. And at some point during our unit on digital artwork, we are going to cover a lot of these different tools, but we'll be covering a few of them to start off today. On the right side of the photograph, or on this website, is our navigation that allows us to zoom in and out of our photo, as well as allows us to move around. We'll also talk a little bit about layers later, which allows you to stack multiple photos or different text on top of a photo. And our history is like a big undo button that I'll show you how to use in a little bit. And last but not least, we talked about some of these options up here that allow you to adjust photos as a whole. But most importantly for today, we're going to need to know how to file and save our photo. But that's going to be in our next video. All right. Well, the first thing I would like you guys to do today is get yourself acquainted with our draw tool. The draw tool is the paintbrush that does not have the little arrows like you see here. It's the one above it that has, that when you highlight it, it shows these hot air balloons. When you click on it, it allows you to paint onto the photograph with whatever color that you like. In order to choose a color, it's going to be these two little circles right here. The color that's on top, in this case the blue color, is whatever color I'm going to paint with. If you want to change that color, simply click on the blue dot, or in your case it might be black or white, and just simply choose whatever color that you like and how dark or how light you want to make it. I'm going to go with the yellow so it's nice and bright. Now that I've got my brush, or I should say my draw tool, and I've got the color selected I want to use, just like we did on Tuesday, we are going to go ahead and just circle the dog. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you cover it up or you go over the Frisbee, don't worry. I just want to make sure that we are all good to go with the draw tool. For a lot of us, we already know how to use this, and that's great, but please make sure that you do that again for me today. The next tool that we are going to explore, and make sure that you are pausing the video to get this done if you haven't done the draw step yet. The next tool we're going to talk about is the crop tool. The crop tool is this one that looks like two little L's, one upside down and one right side up. Just make sure that when you hover over it, it says crop with this little window. You are going to click on that, and that is going to allow you to adjust the size of the photo. Let's adjust the photo from the right-hand side. So I'm going to bring my mouse to this little white bar, and I'm going to drag it just a little bit over so it looks like we're working in a square. When you do that, to confirm that you want to cut this part of the photo out, you either need to hit the Enter key, or as I like to use, the Apply button right here. When you do that, either hitting the Enter button or hitting Apply, it now takes that part of the photo out. Go ahead and pause the video and crop the photo like I did. All right, if you have successfully cropped this photo, it is time to talk about the text tool. The text tool is how you can add letters or words that are used in actual fonts instead of having to draw them out, say, like with the draw tool. The text tool is going to be on the bottom that looks like a big T for text. When you click that tool, it is going to ask you, it is going to want you to select an area by clicking like I just did, and it'll ask you, do you want to add a new text layer? Go ahead and click Add. It's going to show up in the very front, middle of the photo. But what I would like you to do is go ahead and type your name. can also change the color of this text if you like, but you don't have to. But if you want to, just make sure you highlight that text and choose color here, and like before, we can choose something different. But again, if you don't want to change the color, that's fine. There's also options to change the size of the text, but again, for this activity today, you don't need to. Go ahead and drag that up to the top of the photo, so that way I can see your name and I know that you did this work today. Go ahead and pause the video and create your text in this photo. All right, the fourth thing that we are going to do today is to learn about how we can make selections. Selections are how you pick a particular part of a photograph and it allows you to edit it in many different ways. The select tools are going to be at the very top of the screen. There's 3 of them that we'll talk about eventually. One called the marquee, which is for selecting squares. One is called the lasso for drawing what kind of selection you want. And the last one is called a magic wand, which is super useful that we'll be using in some of our first lessons, but not quite yet today. The one I'm going to want you to select is called the lasso tool. The lasso tool, like I said, is how you can draw an area of a photo and edit it however you like. I'm going to click on the lasso tool. And I'm going to draw a little blob shape, maybe over here on the right-hand side of the photograph. I'm just going to click and drag, just like we did with the draw tool, and you'll see that it makes a dotted black and white line. Just make some kind of blob shape like I'm doing. When you let go, it starts to hover or blink a little bit, and that means that you have this area of the photograph selected. What we're going to do is we're going to delete this part of the photograph in order to make a blank spot on this part. In order to delete anything that you have selected, just hit the backspace key on your keyboard. If you don't know which one that is, it's going to be on the top right that has an arrow facing to the left. When I hit that backspace key, doesn't look like anything happened. The reason why that didn't happen is because we were actually in something called a wrong layer. Take a look over here. I have something highlighted in blue in my layers. As I mentioned before, layers are a way in order for you to stack things on top of each other. But you're unable to do anything in a layer if there's nothing there. If I were to click on the background layer and try deleting it, it should work this time. But if the text layer is highlighted, it's not going to delete anything because there's no text there. Go ahead and don't make the mistake that I did and make sure that you have your background layer highlighted. And now let's try hitting that backspace key again. There we go. That time it worked. And again, that's because I had our background, or AKA the original photograph, now highlighted in our layers. So again, if you did nothing happened or that window popped up, just make sure that you go from this layer highlighted to this layer highlighted. Now I still have this area selected, so that means I can still do things with it. The reason why we see black and white boxes there is because there's nothing in that part of the photograph anymore. But let's say I want to put something there. Let's say I want to fill in a color in that part. I can actually take one of the colors here and I can use, say, the draw tool or a tool maybe like the paint bucket that the fill tool that some of you might be familiar with, to fill this selected area in with that color. So I would like you to choose a new color by coming over here and clicking once and picking something that you haven't used yet. And then click OK. And I'm going to now take this selected area and I'm going to fill it in with this blue color using that fill tool. Click on the fill tool, hover it over the area that you selected, click once, and it should then fill it in. That, guys, is the end of all the steps that you need to do. We started off by using the draw tool to paint a circle around the dog. We then used the crop tool to change the size of the photo. We then used the text tool to add words, and I also showed you how to change the color and size, but then we dragged it up to the top of the screen. Then we used the lasso tool to take an area and draw a selection so that way we can edit it. And then we tried to delete it, but then it didn't work because we realized that we were working on a different layer because it had text on it. We had to go back and click on our original layer, the background layer, and then we hit that backspace key again and it deleted it. Finally, we were able to then go and change our color by clicking on the color circle, selecting a color of our choice and how dark or light we wanted it. And then we simply grab the fill tool, which looks like a little dripping paint bucket, and we click there to change that color. That is the end of the things that you need to do for this photograph for Thursday and Friday's lesson. The last thing that we are going to talk about in our next video is how to get this photograph from Pixlr.com and turned in back into Google Classroom.